The first thing I noticed wasn't her face. It was the way silence seemed to wait for her to speak. Her doorway was filled with late afternoon light, golden and soft, and there she stood, Maya, hair still damp from a shower, wearing a loose linen shirt that caught the sun in folds. I'd come to drop off a parcel, one of those quick doorstep deliveries that usually ended with a mumbled thanks and a closed door. But not that day. She looked at me as if she already knew I'd stay longer than a minute. "You're early," she said, her voice smooth, practiced, yet something inside it trembled, like she hadn't used it to talk to someone new in a while. I handed her the small brown box. "Guess traffic was kind," I said, trying not to stare too long. Her fingers brushed mine as she took it, warm, deliberate, just long enough to feel like it could have been an accident. Or not. I felt that small static of contact long after she turned toward her hallway. The house smelled faintly of rain on stone, though the sky was clear. Somewhere, a clock ticked. I shouldn't have noticed that either, but I did. I noticed everything, how her shirt slipped from one shoulder as she reached for a pen, how the light seemed to pause on her skin. "You always deliver this fast?" she asked, half smiling as she signed the receipt. "Only when someone's waiting for it," I said before I could stop myself. That earned a soft laugh, one of those laughs that feels like it's letting you in on a secret you haven't earned yet. She glanced at me again, that look hovering somewhere between curiosity and challenge. "Then maybe next time, don't just deliver," she said, voice lowering just a breath. "Make me feel it's worth waiting for." She said it like a joke, but not quite. And I didn't know what to do with that, whether to laugh, apologize, or just stand there and pretend I didn't understand what she meant. I didn't move. Neither did she. For a second, the air between us felt too full, like it had weight. The light dimmed just slightly, clouds drifting over the sun. Her perfume, something subtle, warm, and old-fashioned, wrapped around the quiet. "Anyway," she murmured, looking away. "Thank you, for being on time." Her tone softened at the end, as though she was saying more than that. I nodded, stepping back, but my hand brushed the doorframe, and for a moment, I thought I'd imagined everything. The look, the voice, the way her eyes lingered on me like I'd reminded her of something she wasn't supposed to want. Then she asked, "You'll be around this area again, right?" "Maybe," I said. "If there's something to deliver." That made her smile, small, knowing. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, an unconscious gesture that felt rehearsed and vulnerable at once. "I'm sure I'll find something," she replied. Silence again. The kind that doesn't ask for words, only dares you to break it. Somewhere inside the house, a door creaked open, another voice called faintly from within, a sound that made her glance over her shoulder. Her eyes met mine one last time, hesitation, apology, and something unspoken flickering behind them. Then she closed the door halfway, her smile faint but real. "Next time, Armin," she said softly. "Don't be in such a hurry." The door clicked shut, leaving me standing on the porch, her scent still in the air, her words tangled somewhere between a promise and a test. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I was delivering something, or waiting for something I couldn't name. She opened the door again a week later. Same quiet street, same slant of light, yet everything felt different, heavier somehow. "I thought you'd forgotten this address," Maya said, leaning against the doorframe. Her tone was light, but her eyes were careful. "Didn't think I was needed," I replied. "You weren't," she said, a pause hanging between us. "But I miss good timing." Her words landed softly, but they stayed there, somewhere between a compliment and a confession. She stepped back, letting me in. The house smelled faintly of paint this time, sharp and clean. A single drop had dried near her wrist, pale blue against skin that looked too soft for work like this. "You painting again?" I asked. "Trying to," she said. "Helps me not think too much." She didn't have to say what about. The wedding ring mark on her hand was faint now but still there, like memory refusing to fade properly. She caught me noticing and quietly said, "He moved out 3 years ago. Still feels like yesterday sometimes." I didn't know how to answer that. So I crouched beside the half-open can, pretending to check the label. You missed a spot, I murmured. Her laugh was quiet. You sound like you've done this before. I haven't, I said. But I can help. She handed me the brush, our fingers touching again, this time intentionally. Her nails grazed my skin, a fleeting warmth that lingered far too long. We painted in silence, our shoulders almost touching, breaths falling into rhythm. Every time she leaned in to fix a line, her sleeve brushed my arm, and the air shifted, charged but unspoken. I wanted to keep my distance. I really did. But the closeness made it impossible not to notice everything: the faint scent of her shampoo, the way her hair curled near her neck, how her voice softened whenever she spoke my name. You're too young to spend your evening doing this, she said finally. You're too alone to do it by yourself. I replied, the words slipping out before I could stop them. She froze, the brush mid-stroke. Her eyes found mine, steady but uncertain. You shouldn't say things like that. I didn't mean yes, you did, she interrupted, her voice low. And that's what makes it worse. Silence again. The sound of the ticking clock filled the space we didn't know how to cross. She turned back to the wall, brushing over the same spot until the paint thickened unevenly. When she finally spoke again, it was softer. People talk, Armin. And they'll talk more if they see you here after dark. I don't care, I said, but my voice betrayed me. She smiled faintly, shaking her head. You will one day. Her hand moved, hesitant, trembling, and touched my shoulder, guiding me toward the door. But she didn't let go. Not immediately. Just long enough for her thumb to trace a small, thoughtless circle on my sleeve. Thank you, she whispered. For helping. Her eyes lifted, meeting mine. There it was again, the quiet pull either of us named. Then she stepped back, hand falling away. Go, she said, her tone steady but her breath uneven. I did. But as the door clicked behind me, the ghost of her touch stayed longer than the scent of fresh paint. It was supposed to be a quick visit. Drop off a small replacement part she'd asked for, the kind of errand that barely needed words. But nothing between us was simple anymore. Maya opened the door halfway, her hair pinned up messily, a few strands loose around her face. You're early again, she said, voice softer than usual. Couldn't sleep, I admitted, immediately regretting how honest it sounded. She gave a small smile, one corner of her mouth curving. That makes two of us. The air inside felt warmer than usual. A soft instrumental played in the background, something old, Ella Fitzgerald maybe. The kind of music that filled silence without erasing it. She led me to the kitchen, bare feet against the tile. I followed with the small box in hand. You can set it there, she said, gesturing to the counter. Our fingers brushed as I did, and the contact was so brief yet so sharp it made me still. She noticed. Of course she did. You always freeze when I touch you, she murmured, almost teasing, almost not. I don't mean to, I said quietly. It just happens. Before she could answer, a phone buzzed loudly on the counter. She glanced at it, frowned, then flipped it face down. I caught a glimpse of the name, Rena, her friend, the one who lived 2 houses away. She's been checking in, Maya said, trying to sound casual. People worry when you start having company too often. Company, I repeated, a small laugh escaping. Is that what I am? She looked at me, and for a moment, the smile faded. You shouldn't ask questions you already know the answers to. The clock ticked. The rain outside began, slow at first, then heavier. I could smell the wet earth through the half-open window, mixing with her perfume. She reached for a mug from the top shelf, stretching slightly. Without thinking, I stepped closer, hand hovering just beneath her elbow, ready to steady her, though she didn't need it. She turned, her face suddenly inches from mine. The space between us collapsed, filled only by breath and quiet. Her eyes held mine longer than they should have. Armin, she began, but her voice faltered. The phone buzzed again, sharp, cutting through the moment. She exhaled, stepping back. I should get that. But she didn't move. Neither of us did. The rain grew louder, drumming against the glass. Somewhere in that sound was everything we hadn't said, the warnings, the want, the fear. You should go, she whispered finally, her tone trembling around the words. I know. Still, I didn't. She reached for the box again, but her hand brushed mine instead, fingers tangling before either of us pulled away. The silence stretched until it became unbearable. Maya, I said, just her name. Nothing else. It was enough to make her look up again. And for a heartbeat, I thought she'd close the distance, just one more inch, one more breath. But she didn't. She turned, eyes lowering, hands trembling just enough to betray what words wouldn't. I stepped back, the air thick with everything unsaid. As I reached the door, she called softly. Next time, don't come without calling. The tone wasn't cold. It was pleading. I nodded, half turning toward her. Would you answer if I did? Her lips parted. No sound came. Only the faintest smile, fragile and dangerous. Then the doorbell rang. Someone else at the door. She froze, eyes wide, then whispered, Go, quickly. I slipped past her, my pulse echoing in my ears. As the door opened behind me, I caught her reflection in the window, composed, smiling, pretending. But her hand still rested on the counter where mine had been. And she didn't move it for a long time. It happened on a Wednesday, too ordinary a day for something that would change everything. I dropped by to return the umbrella she'd lent me during last week's storm. A simple gesture. No intention to linger. Yet the way she looked at me when she opened the door, half surprise, half relief, made it impossible to leave right away. Come in, she said. You'll catch cold standing there. Inside, her phone buzzed again on the counter. Same name flashing across the screen, Rena. She ignored it. But then it buzzed again, and again, until finally, with a sigh, she answered. I pretended not to listen, but every word felt sharp in the quiet. Yes, he's here, she said. A pause. No, he's just helping with something. Stop making it sound like. She stopped mid-sentence, eyes flicking toward me. Whatever came next was softer, harder to make out. But then I caught it, faint and low. It's not what you think. Not what you think. The words twisted in my chest. Because wasn't it? When she hung up, she stood still for a moment, staring at the dark screen. I'm sorry, she said finally. She overheard us last time. On the phone, when you were here. My pulse quickened. Overheard what? Maya met my eyes, guilt flickering beneath the calm. Your voice. My tone. I guess it sounded like more than it was. And is it? I asked before I could stop myself. She didn't answer. Her silence was louder than any denial could have been. I stepped closer. Maya, don't, she whispered, backing up until the counter pressed against her spine. You don't understand what this could do. People already. I don't care what people think, I said, voice low, rough. I just care what you do. Her breath hitched, barely audible, but real. That's the problem, she said. You care too much, and I'm too afraid to. The distance between us dissolved again, the air trembling. I could feel the warmth of her skin, smell the faint trace of jasmine and paint still clinging to her sleeves. Her hand lifted, half reaching, then stopped midway. You shouldn't be here, she whispered, eyes falling to my mouth for a fraction of a second too long. Then tell me to leave, I said. Her voice trembled. I can't. The truth sat between us, dangerous, alive. Her hand brushed mine, and I didn't pull away. But before the moment could break open, the phone rang again, loud, shrill, insistent. She flinched, knocking over a glass that shattered across the floor. The sound jolted us both back into the world we'd been pretending didn't exist. I bent to pick up the shards, but she caught my wrist, stopping me. Her grip was firm, her breath uneven. Don't, she said softly. You'll cut yourself. We stayed frozen like that, her hand around mine, eyes locked, fear and want folding together until they were indistinguishable. Maya, I whispered. We can't keep, I know, she interrupted. Her voice broke on the word. But I don't know how to stop either. Outside, the rain started again, quiet, relentless. She looked at me for a long, fragile moment, then stepped aside, her shoulder brushing mine as she passed. Next time, she said, come through the back gate. No one sees that side. Her tone was steady, but her hands were trembling. And that was the moment I knew, what once felt safe had become the most dangerous place I could stand. The night she called, her voice sounded different, low, tired, carrying something that felt like surrender. Can you come by? She asked. Just for a minute. I didn't ask why. I was already on my way. The street was empty when I reached her house, the porch light dimmed to a soft amber glow. She opened the door before I could knock, wearing an oversized cardigan that slipped from one shoulder. Behind her, the house was dark except for the lamplight in the corner. I shouldn't have called, she said quietly. I know, I replied. But you did. For a moment neither of us moved. Then she stepped aside, and I walked in. The air felt thick, heavy with everything we tried to hold back. I told Rena I wouldn't see you again, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I told myself that too. And yet I know. She exhaled, almost a laugh, but it came out as something closer to a sigh. The silence after that wasn't empty, it was full, charged, alive. The kind of silence that holds two people hostage. She stood near the table, fingers tracing the rim of a coffee mug that had gone cold. I watched her hand move, slow and uncertain, before she said, You make it hard to be careful, Armin. I stepped closer. And you make it hard to walk away. Her eyes met mine then, steady, unguarded. If I were younger, if you were older, but we're not, I said, the words cutting through whatever illusion we'd been living in. Her breath caught, a small sound in the stillness. Do you ever think about what happens after this? Every day, I said. And still, I'm here. Something in her face softened, as if she'd been waiting for that. She reached up to touch my collar, a simple, trembling gesture. You shouldn't make promises you can't keep, she whispered. I'm not making one, I said. I'm making a choice. Her hand lingered there, eyes flickering between mine. The space between us vanished in inches, heat, breath, heartbeat. I could feel her pulse against my wrist, quick and uneven. Then she leaned in, not enough to cross the line, just enough to feel the pull of it. Her forehead brushed mine, light as air. If you stay, she whispered, everything changes. I know, I said. She closed her eyes, and for a long second we stood there, two people balanced on the edge of everything forbidden and everything true. Then she stepped back, slowly, deliberately. Her eyes glistened, but her smile was steady. You should go now, she said. I didn't argue. I just nodded, because we both knew that leaving was the hardest way to stay honest. At the door, she caught my hand, just once, just long enough for her thumb to trace that familiar circle on my skin. Thank you, she said softly, for making it worth waiting for. I left without another word. Outside, the night was cool, the air clearing after rain. Behind me, the light in her house went out, one room at a time, until only the porch glow remained, faint, but still burning. Weeks passed. The spaces between us grew quieter, softer, but never empty. Every time I thought I'd moved on, I'd pass her street, and my hands would tighten on the steering wheel. I'd tell myself to keep driving, and still, I'd slow down near her gate. One evening, as dusk turned the sky amber, I saw her outside watering the small line of plants by her porch. She looked peaceful, older in a way that made her beauty feel earned, not fleeting. When she saw me, she hesitated, then smiled, small, real. You're late, she said. For what? For everything, she replied, setting the watering can aside. We both laughed quietly, the kind of laugh that breaks tension without really erasing it. I walked closer, and she didn't step back this time. I thought you didn't want me coming here anymore, I said. I didn't, she murmured. But some things don't listen to what you want. The air carried the scent of wet soil and jasmine. Her hand brushed mine as she reached for the empty can, and that familiar electricity sparked again, less dangerous now, more tender. Do you still think about that night? I asked. Her eyes softened. Every day, she said. Not with regret. Just clarity. She looked at me for a long moment. I was afraid, she admitted. Of what people would say. Of what I'd start to feel if I let it happen. And now? I asked. She smiled faintly. Now I realize it already did. I just didn't name it. The honesty in her voice left no space for clever replies. I stepped closer, close enough to feel her breath mix with mine. Then maybe it's time we stop pretending. Her lips parted slightly, but she didn't move away. Instead, she reached up and rested her palm against my chest, feeling my heartbeat. You still have so much to live, Armin, she said softly. You shouldn't anchor yourself to someone who's already learning to slow down. I covered her hand with mine. You're not slowing down, I said. You're finally breathing. She looked at me, eyes full, glistening, and in that moment she stopped fighting. Her arms came around me first, slow and unsure. I held her back, feeling the small tremor that ran through her shoulders. There was no rush, no apology, just warmth and relief, and the sound of her exhale against my neck. When she finally leaned back, her fingers stayed tangled with mine. She looked at me as though memorizing something fragile. We'll figure it out, she whispered. Together? Together, she said and smiled. The porch light flickered on, catching the edges of her hair. The world outside moved as if nothing had changed, but inside, everything had. We sat down on the steps, still holding hands, saying nothing. The silence between us didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt earned. Her head rested lightly on my shoulder. The sky above turned dark violet, stars beginning to show. And for the first time since the day I met her, I wasn't delivering anything. I was simply staying. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?